I've often said that I'm running for president to put the American dream within reach of every American. And that means making sure that if you work hard, you'll be able to build a better life, not just for yourself, but for your children and your grandchildren. And that after a lifetime of work, you'll be able to retire with some dignity and some respect. But folks here in Powder Springs know all too well that that dream feels like it's slipping out of reach for too many Americans. More and more Americans are losing their job each month. We've had 436,000 jobs lost here in the United States since January. Those who haven't lost their job, who are still working, feel like you're working harder for less. Families have seen their incomes on average fall nearly $1,000 since George Bush took office. Meanwhile, the cost of everything from a gallon of milk to a gallon of gas has skyrocketed. College tuition going up, health care costs going up. I've met Americans all across the country who are facing financial hardship, and in some cases bankruptcy, because, like Lawrence, their medical bills have driven them to financial ruin, or because they were tricked into buying a home that they could not afford. It's known as the middle class squeeze, and it's pushing families deeper and deeper into debt. The typical household now has over $9,600 in debt. Along with this rise in debt, we're seeing a sharp rise in bankruptcies. In the first 6 months of this year alone, we saw nearly 500,000 people, 500,000 people file for bankruptcy. That's a 30% increase from what it was the same time last year. Studies show that half of those filing for bankruptcy are probably families with children at home, and 3/4 are declaring bankruptcy after losing a job or suffering a serious illness. Now, these bankruptcies aren't happening on their own. They reflect an underlying economy that is weak. To address the rising bankruptcy rate at its source, we have to make long-term investments to strengthen our economy. And that's why I've proposed plans to create millions of new jobs, investing in American infrastructure, to get energy costs under control by making America energy independent, to make health care affordable for families and businesses, to put a college degree into the reach for anyone who wants to, so that Americans can have the skills to compete in our global economy. That's how we're going to solve the long-term problems that we face in our economy. But Americans are also looking to Washington for some immediate relief, some short-term relief. So let's take the bankruptcy problem as an example. Now, let me be clear. The American people aren't looking for government to solve all their problems. You believe in hard work. You believe in personal responsibility. You believe in paying your bills. But you also believe that if you fall on hard times, Washington should be there for you. And yet, instead of standing up for instead of standing up for you, Washington's been standing up for big banks, for credit card companies, for mortgage companies. For too long, our bankruptcy laws have protected the special interests, the big banks and credit card companies, instead of struggling families. And while John McCain is an honorable man, and I respect and admire his service to our country, the fact is, when it comes to strengthening the safety net for hardworking families, John McCain's been part of the problem, not part of the solution. Like George Bush, Senator McCain does not believe the government has a real role to play in protecting Americans from unscrupulous lending practices. While I opposed the credit card industry's bankruptcy bill that made it harder for families to climb out of debt, John McCain was supporting it. He even opposed helping families who were only in bankruptcy because of medical bills they couldn't pay. He sided with the big banks, again, when it came to protecting the most valuable possession that older Americans have, and that's their home. And again, when it came to protecting families who were suffering in the wake of the storms that hit New Orleans, Katrina and Rita. Senator McCain would continue the economic policies that have hobbled families and our entire economy. He would continue to allow the banks and credit card companies to tilt the playing field in their favor at the expense of hardworking Americans. Well, I'm running for president because I don't believe we can afford 4 more years of George Bush policies. I don't think we can afford 4 more years. I don't think we can afford 4 more years that favor Wall Street over Main Street. I intend to reform our bankruptcy laws to give Americans who find themselves trapped in debt a second chance. Because while Americans should pay what they owe, and we should be fair to those creditors who are fair to their borrowers, we also have to do more for the struggling families who need help the most. And that starts with ending the outrage of Americans going bankrupt just because they get sick. Half of all personal bankruptcies arise because somebody has a serious illness. That will change when I'm president. If you can, first of all, I'm going to give you a health care plan that works for every American. If you've got health care, we're going to lower your premiums by $2,500 per family per year. If you don't have health care, you're going to be able to buy into a plan similar to the one I have as a member of Congress, and John Conyers has as a member of Congress. We're going to, so that every single person will be able to get health care, and we're going to crack down on insurers who won't pay the claims despite the fact that you've been paying the premiums. We're going to put an end to that. But for those who've gotten caught up in their medical expenses, if you can demonstrate that you went bankrupt because of medical expenses, under my plan, you will be able to relieve that debt and get back on your feet. We're also going to help struggling homeowners by updating our bankruptcy laws to ensure that you can renegotiate your mortgage and stay in your home. Let me explain the way that the bankruptcy laws work right now. If you have a second home, if you've got a vacation home, then the court in bankruptcy is allowed to work that out so that you can keep it. But if it's your first home, you can't do that. Now think about that. If you're rich and you've got a vacation home, then you can work that out in bankruptcy. If you're a working family and it's the only home you have, you can't work that out in bankruptcy. That makes no sense, and it's going to change when I'm president of the United States of America. And today I also want to announce a few additional steps that I'll take as president to restore fairness to our bankruptcy laws. First of all, we're going to help those service members and military families who are being stretched thin because of repeated moves, long deployments. They're being affected by repeated moves, long deployments. They're being preyed on by predatory lenders that see them as an easy target. Let me tell you something. If you are protecting America, America should be protecting you from unfair bankruptcy laws. And that's why I'll create a fast-track bankruptcy process for military families. We're going to exempt them from the harsh means tests that make it harder for debt to be forgiven. We're going to cut unnecessary paperwork. We're going to let them keep a greater share of the value of their home. And we're going to change the rules to say that service members and their families can only use those exemptions if their laws in the state allow it. We're not going to just have it subject to what your state law is. My attitude is, if you are serving this country, then you deserve to be protected under federal law. You should be protected no matter where you live. The second proposal I'm announcing will help older Americans. You know, our seniors have actually seen their bankruptcy rates rise 150% over the last 15 years. Our parents and grandparents are declaring bankruptcy at a faster rate than any other American. But unlike younger families, they don't have future earnings to count on to help them climb out of debt. Often they don't have much in their savings account either. What they do have is their homes. And for older couples, that's the most valuable thing that they have. And that's why, as president, I'm going to help make sure that if you are older than 62 years old and you're facing bankruptcy, that you have a better chance of keeping your home. Because if we're serious about protecting retirement security, we need to protect the homes that are the cornerstone of a secure retirement. So we're going to have a larger homestead exemption so that seniors are less threatened, particularly if they've gotten involved in some sort of predatory loan. And a lot of seniors are being tricked all across the country, having their equity drained from them and leaving them insecure. The same thing is true when it comes to families who are recovering from natural disasters. We're going to streamline the bankruptcy process for them and enact a temporary moratorium so that those families don't have to worry about collectors at a time when they're just having to rebuild their lives. Now, this is all part of a larger plan that I have to restore balance and fairness to our economy. In November, I proposed a plan to help families who are mired in debt. Since so many who are struggling to keep up with their mortgages are now shifting their debt to credit cards, we have to make sure that credit cards don't become the next stage of the housing crisis. To make sure that Americans know what they're signing up for, I'm going to institute a 5-star rating system to inform consumers about the level of risk involved in every credit card. We're going to establish a credit card bill of rights that will ban unilateral charges on credit card agreements so they can't just change up on you after you've already gotten your credit card. We're going to ban rate hikes on debt you already have. We're going to ban interest charges on late fees. You should pay what's fair, not just what fattens the profits of the credit card companies. But we've got to also just prevent people from getting into financial hardship in the first place. That's why we've got to create jobs. So I've already proposed that we are going to invest $15 billion a year. $15 billion a year in new green technologies that can create up to 5 million jobs a year, rebuilding our economy with clean energy, solar and wind and biodiesel. We'll put young people back to work insulating homes. We're going to create the new cars of the future, the plug-in hybrids that get 100 miles again, and then we're going to make them right here in the United States of America. We are going to invest in our infrastructure, rebuilding our roads and our bridges and schools that are falling apart, putting people back to work right now. And if people tell you we can't afford to do it, you just remind them we're spending, if we can spend $10 billion a month in Iraq, we can spend $10 billion right here in Georgia. Yes, we can. I also want to restore some fairness to the tax code. The George Bush tax code's been very good if you're a millionaire or a billionaire. Hasn't been so good if you're not. And that's why I've proposed a middle-class tax cut that will provide $1,000 of relief to 95% of workers and their families. We're also going to eliminate the income tax for seniors who are making $50,000 a year or less. They need some relief. And if Senator McCain wants to debate about taxes in this campaign, that's a debate I cannot wait to have. Because John McCain doesn't have an answer to the housing crisis. He doesn't have an answer to the education crisis. He doesn't have a plan to rebuild our infrastructure. The only plan that he's got, the only plan that he has is to not only continue the Bush tax cuts to wealthy corporations, he wants to increase them. His plan is essentially the Bush plan, plus $300 billion in tax breaks that almost all go to corporations, $100 billion just in corporate tax breaks. ExxonMobil, which made $11 billion last quarter, under John McCain's tax plan would get an additional $1 billion in tax breaks. Think about that. And he's got no plan to pay for it. So he would just create more debt, more deficits. A McCain administration would mean a fiscal Groundhog Day in Washington. You remember that movie Groundhog Day? You kept on waking up, and the same thing happened over and over and over again. We don't want the same old thing. We want something new. That's why I'm running for President of the United States of America. So I want to be very clear here, because John McCain has been, and the Republicans have been saying some things just that simply are not true. So let me just be absolutely clear. If you are a family making $250,000 a year or less, $250,000 a year or less, we will not raise your taxes. Not your income tax, not your payroll tax, not your capital gains tax, not any tax if you make $250,000 a year or less. Let me just see a show of hands. How many people does that include, the people making $250,000 a year or less? All right. Now, if you're doing better than that, then we're still raising money for the campaign. So I noticed that brother didn't raise his hand over there. So, yeah, there's some wealthy guys here. If you make $250,000 a year or less, we will not raise your taxes. We will cut your taxes. In fact, my plan provides 3 times the amount of tax relief to middle-class families than John McCain does. So I am happy to have a debate about taxes with John McCain. In the end, this is not about 5-point plans. It's not about what's on some paper somewhere. It's not just about reining in the special interests in Washington. It's about something broader. It's about who we are as Americans. It's about building an economy that reflects our fundamental values. That if you work hard, that you're going to be rewarded. That we look after not just the wealthy, but also the worker. It's about recognizing that we have a stake in each other, that I am my brother's keeper, that I am my sister's keeper, that we have mutual obligations to each other. It's about living up to the idea that each generation of Americans makes some sacrifices because we know that the next generation is going to do a little better than we did. That's what the American dream's all about. That if you work hard, you should be able to find a job that pays a living wage, that you shouldn't be bankrupt when you get sick, that you should be able to send your children to college, that you should be able to retire with some dignity and some respect. That's what we're fighting for. That's the choice in this election. And Georgia, if you'll stand up with me and vote for me, I promise you we will not just win here in Georgia, we'll win this general election. And you and I together will change this country and change the world. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.